So much for joining us. This is, as we round out Women's History Month, this is an amazing opportunity to hear from history makers that sit right among us, who work with us every day, who advance the initiatives of the state. And I'm happy that we will have just a bit of their time to share some gems. I hope we leave inspired. I hope we hear a call to action, whatever that action call may be for you. I hope you learn a little bit more. And really, I just hope that you're able to see yourself and feel validated in some ways in some of the things that these amazing women share. My name is Raven Devon. I have the distinct and honorable pleasure to serve as the director of the Illinois Department of Central Management Services. Usually when we do these sorts of things, you thank the people who make it happen at the end. I'm going to break that tradition and thank some amazing women as we start this off, because I have lots of ideas. My staff will tell you that I have all the ideas. And then I'm like, okay, how do we get this done? So I want to acknowledge Kathy Kwiatkowski, CMS Senior Policy Advisor, Mikasa Johnson. She has two roles at CMS. One is official, one is other duties as assigned. She serves as the Reparations Commission Coordinator, but also helps with public affairs, as that is a bit of her niche. And then I want to acknowledge Sarah Curley, who's our Chief Administrative Officer, who is on vacation right now, but with us in spirit. She said record it, she'll make sure she watches today. I'm not going to introduce our panel. I'm going to allow these amazing women, I want you to hear their voices from them, but I want to note something right off the bat. Three of the women up here I've worked with in some capacity before, and so I felt like I could kind of send an email and maybe they'll say yes. But one woman I had not worked with before. I knew who she was, I'd heard her name, we've been on like those 1,000 people emails. And Sarah said, I said, hey, you think I could get her? And she said, well, yeah, I'll make a warm introduction. I said, I'm just gonna try and send an email. She doesn't know me, but maybe she'll say yes. And what I want you all, that's First Assistant Deputy Governor Ramos here, but what I want you all to know is that it's important to answer the call even when you don't know the number on the caller ID. So it's great to answer when you know the number, we gotta do that too, but to answer when you don't know the number is also important, because that's how relationships are built. So thank you all for joining, for answering the number, whether or not it was programmed in or not. And we'd love to hear just a little bit about you, what you do, and whatever you'd like to share with us. So I'm not going to say in order. I'll let you all decide.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Can you hear me? No. Now?
No.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh man. Hi everyone. Teresa Ramos. Can you hear? Is it working? Okay. First Assistant Deputy Governor for Education. I think I've shared my bio before, but I am.
Is it working? Is that close enough to it?
This mic in. Nope. I'm gonna proceed, and then we'll just see if it picks up. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
First Assistant Deputy Governor for Education, which means I help the Deputy Governor
And our whole team manage a
portfolio from
early childhood to higher ed.
You can try a little further.
Further away. Is that working?
closer.
On and off. Louder? I'm really loud.
Yeah. Is
Just
this
go without
where
it. Is
this
can
on the
people hear
WebEx?
online?
Yes.
Yes.
Is this the WebEx?
Okay. All right. So we'll just try to be loud. And okay. First Assistant Deputy Governor, which means I support the Deputy Governor and the Governor really thinking about policy and implementation of policy from early childhood through higher education and post-secondary. I am a mother of a 4-year-old who is my real boss, which I tell the Deputy Governor all the time. A wife, a sister, part of a large family. I grew up in Chicago, went to Chicago public schools, and have been invested in public education in Illinois my whole life. I have parents who worked for the federal government, and so like they've instilled with me public service and a commitment to work ethic, and I bring all of that into the work here. And that will be my intro, and I'll pass it on.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I first of all have to say happy Cowboy Carter Day to all who celebrate. A little shout out to Beyonce. It's still
That's
Women's
right.
History Month.
That's right.
And I also just want to say thank you to Director Devon for gathering this group of really remarkable women today as we celebrate Women's History Month. My name is Cameron Joost. I'm the acting assistant director at DCEO. I'm as we discussed as we were getting ready for this panel, I'm the newest member of the state on this panel. I've just been with DCEO since the very end of October, so still getting my sea legs, but I'm not new to public service. Prior to joining DCEO, I was the state director for U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth for 8 years. So I'm no stranger to working with and for some really phenomenal women who have taught me a ton. I also have a mini boss. He's 3, and runs my life in the best way, our lives in the absolute best way. And I think I'll leave it there. I'm just really excited about this discussion today. Thank you to those that join us in person and online. But I'm looking forward to hearing from all the ladies on this panel.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And again, thank you, Director Devon, for this opportunity and for the introduction to all of these amazing women. My name is Latoya Hughes. I'm the Acting Director of the Illinois Department of Corrections. I, too, have a little longer history with the state than this wonderful woman who sits next to me, but not that long. I've been with the state maybe going on 4 years. So as the Acting Director of the Department of Corrections, I have a responsibility for the individuals in our custody and over 12,000 staff members who work for the Department of Corrections. Prior to that, I was the Chief of Staff for the former director, and then prior to that, the chief inspector at the Illinois Department of Corrections. I am an attorney by trade, so I've been an attorney for going on 23 years now. Oh my goodness, time flies. And so that journey has always been in public service at whichever agency that I've worked with. And I will say, being at the Department of Correction at this stage of my life has certainly been a very rewarding opportunity, and I'm just humbled and thankful to be in this space and be able to do this work and to be able to work with all of these amazing women. And then I will pass it over to Rebecca.
Pass the microphone.
Absolutely.
Good morning. Thank you for coming, and Director, thank you for bringing us together. It's a great experience to see people's faces and not just, hear the WebEx voices. So my name is Rebecca Hooks. I am the first Deputy Director for the Illinois State Police. I'm actually the first female First Deputy Director in 101 years, and I'm very thankful for that opportunity. We have some amazing leadership that laid the foundation for this, and I'm thankful for that. So I have a law enforcement family that surrounds me and is very supportive. My father and my brother are both retired law enforcement officers. And as the first deputy director, well, I'll back up. When I had told my dad, hey, I think I want to be a cop, he's like, you got to go with the state. There's a ton of opportunities there, and do that. So 23 years later, I can say that I'm sitting in this seat because of the comment that he made, and that's really where it started. But as the first deputy director, I oversee all of our 7 different divisions, and that's everyone from our patrol troopers, who you may have met on the interstate, hopefully not anytime recently, but any from those, our division of patrol, to our version of detectives or our zone investigators, crime scene investigators, traffic crash reconstruction officers, pilots. So I oversee all of those divisions, as well as all of our bureaus like EEO, labor, legal. They all come up through the director's office, and I report directly to Director Kelly. So it is a crazy job supervising an agency of about 3,000, but I love it. It's a lot of fun, and there's plenty of work to do.
Thank you so much. It's important to note that First Deputy Director made that history this year. So history is still being made among us. She is the highest ranking woman of the Illinois State Police in its history.
And she's getting a round of applause and hearts in the future as well.
So hopefully she'll ascend even higher in the future. And I want to know, I have to plug, because I'm CMS and we do all the hiring for the state of Illinois. Your dad is absolutely correct. There's so much opportunity at the state, and I use that as an entree, but whatever you want to be, we hire for. I don't care if it's to be a doctor, a dentist, an engineer, an environmentalist. If you want to be an auto mechanic, if you want to be a person that thinks about really hard things and figures out how to do it, you can do that at the state, and everything in between. Because we are hiring, we have jobs available, CMS.
IDOC hiring very much.
Yes. Director Hughes definitely will need some more corrections officers, without question. That is a never-ending post, legit. So lots of opportunity. So we'll jump in here. It's Women's History Month. History is still being made, which sometimes I'm a little bit overwhelmed by, but still inspired, because that means there's still work to be done. I am proud to say at CMS, of our senior leadership, meaning we define that as someone who has a bureau, 54% of the leadership at CMS is a woman. So that's pretty good. And it mirrors almost the state. The state's workforce is across the board. So from whatever role you're looking at, of our 47,000 employees under the governor, 51% are women. So I would love to ask the panel here, a two-parter. One, how have women shaped the workplace in your opinion? And two, how have women leaders shaped you? And I use leaders very broadly. In my own life, there was, at that time she was called a secretary, not an admin assistant. She was very clear when we changed the title that I'm a secretary. She was one of the most impactful leaders I've ever met in my professional career in terms of the soft skills that she reminded me to always, essentially, the manners my mom sent me with, to keep those and elevate them. So let's talk through what women in the workplace, how it shaped the workplace period, and then you.
So I'll take the how women have shaped me. And for me, it goes back to college, law school, and then my first steps within the career of being an attorney. There has been, at every stage, a woman in my life, not necessarily a family member, but just a woman who I have come across at every stage, who has encouraged me and pointed out something in me that I did not see in myself. And I think that continued push from women throughout my life is really what has gotten me through to this point, and that will continue to get me through to whatever is in store for my future as I continue my career. And so I make sure that I too model that same thing that has been given to me, that I point out to people things that I see in them, because I think that that's really important. As I grew up, I was a very shy child. And so I would not try anything new. And so for those who knew me in high school and middle school, one, when I became an attorney, they were shocked. Two, when I became a prosecutor, they were shocked, right? They're like, you wouldn't even talk, let alone someone who is in court every day doing trials and arguing cases and really fighting for those and being the voice for those who do not have the opportunity to speak for themselves. And for me to get to that place, it was because there were women who throughout my life pushed me and said that they saw something in me and I could do it, and encouraged me to do it. And then I did it and then gained the confidence to then do more. So that's kind of how women within the workforce have shaped me.
I'm happy to add. I don't know if you can hear. So before I took this position, which I've had for about 2 years and some change, I only had female bosses, and those bosses really helped me be the best person in my current job. I learned from them, there are different ways to be a boss. There are ways to do it that are open up, kind of new ways of interacting and engaging colleagues, building relationships and getting things done. I had two very different bosses, and I learned both good and bad about how to engage. You learn how to manage up and sideways, and you think about being a boss, and that's just about telling people who report to you what to do, and that is absolutely not it at all. And those bosses really helped me see that and helped me be, I think, hopefully a really good first assistant deputy governor for both Deputy Governor Torres and the governor, really just to say, how do we get things done? How do we build relationships to get things done, to answer questions? And so those women have helped shape state government in ways that they don't know because they weren't in state government. And I think that's just a powerful way for me to at least honor them and bring them into the work here.
I want to, when I was thinking about this question, what you just said is really what stood out to me when thinking about how, in my opinion, women shape the workplace. And to me, the first thing that came to mind is that women get stuff done. Mm-hmm. Women get stuff done. There's no question about it. It's no accident that the governor has so many women in his cabinet, in his office. and elevates women to positions of leadership and power, because we collaborate, we know how to get things done, women are really a force to be reckoned with, especially when we get together. So that's how I think that women impact the workplace. And then in regards to specific women throughout my career, like I mentioned, I worked for Tammy Duckworth for 8 years, and prior to that, I worked for U.S. Senator Dick Durbin. And working for Tammy Duckworth was such a profound experience for me to see a woman who has the life experience that she has, who's overcome the challenges that she has, and for her to entrust me with this huge job it was a dream job for me. And it was a job that I'd only ever see men do. And it was a job that I thought maybe I'd get when I was in my 50s or 60s, because those were the people who had the job. So when she offered me the job when I was 27, I thought, there's no way I can do this. But she believed in me, and her chief of staff, my boss, Caitlin Fahey, believed in me. And that's also an example of a woman putting together a predominantly woman leadership team. And that really translates to getting things done, and ultimately serves, to your point, for the betterment of the people that we serve, for the people of the state of Illinois. And I also will just give a quick shout out to my mom. Obviously, she is not directly in the path of the work that I do, but she's always been super supportive of me and amazing. And she really, for me, set the example of what it means to work hard and get things done and have a career. She raised my sister and I by herself. She was a physician, and I know she has regrets about maybe not spending as much time with us when we were little, but I've taken time to let her know that she really set that example for me of working hard and putting in the work ethic, and in doing so, she really changed lives. So for me, that's like the basis. That's what I always go back to, and I have been really lucky along the way to have some phenomenal women call out things in me that I didn't even know were there. And I agree. Now, as I continue into roles of leadership, it's really important to me that you reach that hand back or to the side of you to lift other women up with you as well.
I think for me personally, it did start with family growing up. And I grew up in a family that encouraged, and by encouraged, I mean forced independence a lot of times. Like, make a decision, if you call in a panic, like, are you hurt? Is someone else hurt? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
In that quick decision making and that force of, independence has been invaluable to me in the field that I'm in, where I'm not afraid to say what I think. If I have something to say, you're absolutely going to know. So I did have family mentors, but throughout my career, I've been with the state police 23 years, and the predominance of my mentors have been men, because that's the environment that I was in. And it wasn't about my gender. It was about, oh, she works hard, she's good at her job. Okay, let's move forward. And it was not just the, hey, it was this, I see more in you than you see in yourself. I want to bring you not just where I am, but higher. Mm-hmm. And that was difficult for me to see, because it was the same thing. I would look at spots, and I never looked at a spot and thought, oh, I can't do that because I'm a woman. And I think that comes from the growing up of my parents saying, hey, you can do whatever you want. It's not impossible, it's hard, and you can do this. You can do hard things. But the people that surrounded me were very much like, we're going to take you, you have the ability to go further. And that was huge, because you don't see that in yourself, and you are scared. And every time, because it's unknown, you're not scared because you can't do it. You're scared because it's unknown, and you don't want to let your agency down, and you don't want to take away from the mission or embarrass, who you're working with. But you get in this spot, and it's like, I don't have to do this like somebody else. I don't have to do this like a man.
Yes.
I have to do this like me.
Yes.
And everyone has a different skill set, and it's about like your skill set and how you push that mission forward. Not about what the last guy did.
Yep.
What can I do from here on out and move it forward? So it's huge opportunities that you have to seize when they're available, and don't let somebody else tell you like, oh, you can't do that. It's like, okay, either sit back and watch or get out of my way. So
love that.
Yeah. Assistant Director Joost, I really connect with the idea of the foundation of your mom. My mom was married to my dad, had my brother, who was 8 years older than me, She's a Chicago public school teacher, but a special ed teacher. So that's a lot already. And she decided I'm going to go back to school and get my doctorate. And we lived on the south side of Chicago. She went to Illinois State. So she would go to work every day. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we would drive. When I say we, because I was in the car with her, because I'm like 5. And so it's like, we got to go. So I would sit in class with her at night. Wow. And she had a full-time job. She never stopped, nowhere near. And then later on, she became a principal. So my school bus dropped me off at her school. So I was in school all day long, from 8 to 8. For 8 years, I was in school. And so today, my mom says, well, Raven, you're doing so much. You got to slow down. You're just moving. And I'm like, hey, lady. I am modeling what I saw.
Yes.
For better or worse, because sometimes Pat, my chief of staff, can agree that sometimes it's maybe for worse. I got to turn it off. But I'm modeling that.
Yeah.
I also had a leader, but the very first person who hired me, I thought she was crazy when she hired me. I was out of school. I did not know I'd passed the bar yet. I'd lost my original offer to go to go work. She gave me a job managing people. I was 24 years old. Mm-hmm. I couldn't manage my checkbook. I still had one. And she sat me down. She said, Raven, you're going places. Yeah. This is what you need to know. Every room you walk in, you got to know everybody's job. Mm-hmm. And that was overwhelming to me because I didn't understand what she was saying. She said, there's nobody in the room whose job you shouldn't know. In my very literal, analytical, just out of law school brain, I need to know everything. Mm-hmm. But she was really telling me, and I revisit that so much, you have to know enough about everybody around you to do your job.
Yeah.
And so while that was probably one of the most challenging roles I've ever had, I'm incredibly thankful to her because what she did then, which I didn't know, was that she saw something in me that I could not see. She spoke into me, she invested, which is all of the things that you all are saying. So from that time to today, the circle just has to continue. Yeah. So I'll go to the next question here. This is for FADG Ramos and Assistant Director Joost. What tools do you incorporate to take up space as a woman leader and to simultaneously create space for others?
Okay. I took this question very literally, and I'm going to give you just some buckets, which is vulnerability, which I think is tied to humility, humor. I try really hard to bring as much silliness and joy to the work, or else it's really hard through the day. And then this touches on, I think, what we've all said a little bit, which is bravery to be direct. You got to be brave to be direct and really be able to give feedback, again, not just to those who are junior staff, but to your boss. You got to be able to tell your boss, I don't think this is working. I think there's a different or a better way. Let's try this approach. You got it to your exact last story that you shared. I'm not an expert in early childhood policy and K-12 policy and every aspect of policy through which I'm helping oversee. I have to ask good questions. I have to be brave enough to go into a room and ask people to explain something to me with humility and say, I still don't understand this one thing in order to get it out. And that creates space for other folks to be I'm also going to ask a question. I'm not going to be in a room where everyone is afraid to be the one that says I don't understand what you just said. I need you to explain this to me. And I think that not only helps me do my job, but it helps other people say, okay, here's what I need to do when I enter into this space. And then doing it, as kind and with as many jokes and levity as possible, because we are all always working, and we could do that in a way that's just always, very serious and somber, or we could try to have a little bit of joy throughout the day, which I try to bring. So that's it.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful. I think that when I think about taking up space, I also want to acknowledge some of the things that I've given a lot of thought to as I grow in leadership roles, which is even the way I present myself. So I have this curly hair, and when I was growing up, I loved my curl. This is gonna date me, but my AIM was curly girly. My curls were a part of me. But as I got into professional spaces, I started to think, maybe my curly hair is not professional. I need to straighten it. And as I have gotten more and more comfortable with my leadership roles and who I am, that also means taking up space in the form of my hair, in the way that I dress, wearing bright colors. Don't get me wrong, I wear a lot of black too, but I also, wearing dresses, because I'm like, to your point, I'm not, gonna try to show up like a man. I'm showing up as myself, and myself is a big curly hair and a bright dress sometimes. So I think of the way that I physically present myself and take up physical space. And then I also think that what's really important to me in terms of creating space for others is building coalitions and sharing my platform, always acknowledging that success is never solo, and making sure to give credit to the people who helped in the success of, whatever the success was. And a lot of times it's women. So making sure to share that platform, making sure to highlight the amazing work that people are doing all around me. And I really resonate with your point about asking questions, because for the longest time in my career, I was scared to ask questions. I was afraid that I would look like I don't know what I'm talking about. But like, spoiler alert, not everybody knows what they're talking about. That's right. And I think also, being a good leader means you understand that you don't know everything.
Right. That's
and
right.
you're relying on the people around you, and you've surrounded yourself with people who are experts in that field, and you can lean on their expertise and their judgment in your decision making and strategic planning and those sorts of things. So I think helping others take up space is shining a spotlight on amazing work that other people are doing, and really sharing my platform is important to me.
Can I just add one more thing on that?
Yes,
Which you reminded me, which is like, in doing that, I feel like the other thing that helps take up space or allows other people to take up space and do it differently is being okay with people saying, hey, you could have done this better. Like, being open to actually getting feedback too, and saying, that could have been better, or here's what I would do differently, and allowing space for that to come, and then how I receive that space and take that up, I feel like really helps more folks do it. And then it doesn't feel like we're all in competition. It feels like we're in collaboration to do something great. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. So what I heard is, and I want to shout out Secretary Quintero from DHS. Secretary sat on a panel for us last month for our Governor's Office Academy of Leadership, our GOLD program. And we had some amazing men on that panel too. But Secretary said they kept saying humility and understanding how far that goes. And so what I'm hearing here is just being brave and kind. I have a lot of levity with I have jokes all the time. That's the way you got to get through it, right? But really also maybe showing up as yourself.
Absolutely.
And taking up the space that you need creates the space for others. It almost gives people a pass to say, yep, I try and do that in every which way I can, because we don't want people to shrink. We want people to take up their appointed space.
Yes.
So a bit of a different question to Director Hughes and First Deputy Hooks. Obviously, given your roles, what you all, where you all work, it's a little bit different. Overwhelmingly dominated by men, historically, factually, and probably will be so for the future, for the foreseeable future, just because of the way hiring works at the state. All roads could lead back to hiring for me. But can you talk to us about your challenges along the way, as well as your champions? Because I'm a firm believer that you don't get a challenge without a champion. You just may not know it in the moment.
Yeah. I'll start and then pass it over to you. I think for me, again, I'm an attorney by trade. So when I came into the legal field almost 23 years ago, the legal field was predominantly a male field as well. So my entire career has been a career where... That's all right. Like, do I hear myself? Is this me? Has been a career where each job that I've had, each career path that I've had, has included agencies that were predominantly male agencies. And so through that path, I think I've found champions in every single agency. And those champions were men and women, right? And so I think that that's something that's important to note. that you will find champions along the way, and they continue to push you through. You have challenges in every position and space that you're in. Oftentimes, and as we talk about kind of filling up space and coming into new spaces, you don't know everything. So going into a space, sometimes as a woman, sometimes it's the impression that, maybe that you need to prove yourself, right? And so once people see that you can do the work, then the champions come out the woodworks and really come to kind of gather around you and help support you and help you throughout your journey. There is no way I would have gotten through any position that I've been in without male and female champions along the way, to continue to push you, to work with you. One of the things that works best for me and my team is, one, acknowledging my team, right? Acknowledging that they are indeed the subject matter experts in all of these things. And I bring them together so we can move forward at one mission for the Department of Corrections. But two, to also acknowledge the fact that, life is happening to everybody amongst this very difficult work that we're doing. And so I continue to remind people that I see that, I acknowledge that, and that I want them to acknowledge that too, and take care of that. That is what some of the champions have taught me along the way, that as long as you do that for yourself and for your teammates, that you guys can move forward one united mission, and really do the work and get the job done. So are there challenges along the way? Absolutely. But you show up and you show out, right? And that's really, all you can do with the assistance of your team that you formed.
And I'll piggyback. You're absolutely right. There are challenges all along the way. And I think some of those you impose on yourself. Mm-hmm. You limit yourself. And I think you kind of have to get out of your own head and realize, hey, you're not in this alone. And someone had said these, the decisions aren't made in a bubble. And I like to tell the colonels, I'm listening to you. The director's office may be the final decision, but we're not the only voice. Right. And I want to hear what you have to say. And you also have to help people understand, just because we don't do what you say, it doesn't mean you weren't heard. And it doesn't mean you weren't listening. Sometimes there's a bigger picture. And one of those challenges, like I said, be willing to kind of get out of your own head and have the mentor, whether it's male or female, that you can go to and say, hey, I'm worried about this. This is what I'm seeing. And someone who will be honest with you, right. Surrounding. So if you open that space and make that safe space for other people, like, I want to hear you, I'm listening, I know you have expertise, what are the risks, what are the challenges, they will give you everything they have. And constantly reinforcing that culture will only help you. And when you do that, it's better for everyone, and your mission just moves that forward that much better, and people want to be a part of something. And I think that culture is huge, and it helps with everything. I mean, you mentioned from strategic planning, that involves every section of your department. So overcoming the challenges by actually listening to people. And once you get their opinions, and sometimes, like I said, you take that opinion and sometimes you don't, but they remember how you made them feel. And I think there's challenges no matter where you are, what division you are. Get out of your own head, talk to other people. You're not in it alone. There are other voices, and you're going to make mistakes. And I think I look at mistakes like, to a trooper metaphor, it's a rest area. I'm going to pull over, I'm going to give myself a little bit of time, but you don't live there. You don't move into the rest area. You get back on and you keep going. And you realize, hey, everybody's been there, and you talk about it, and how do you stop it from happening again, and you keep going.
Absolutely. I'm going to take that, right? The
Yeah,
mistake
me too.
is a rest area.
I just wrote it down.
I'm taking that. But I also want to acknowledge something that you said about, listening to your team. Probably to the chagrin of my team, whenever we're on a call, I purposefully go around and ask every single person on that call if they have something that they want to share, right? Feedback, comment, additions, because I want to make sure that everybody knows that I'm interested in what everybody has to say. If you're on the call, I'm interested in what you have to say. I don't care what your title or position is. I'm interested in what you have to say. And so I think that's very important as well. acknowledging that everybody has a contribution to the work that we do.
Director Hughes, I looked at my chief of staff there because he's a chief of staff, and you were a chief, and you were a chief, so he's like, let's get to it. And I'm always like, no, we got to take this moment. And so we lovingly call him Dr. No, because he's like, let's just move on. But every time we take that extra moment, right, we get, if nothing else, even if we're just building the capital for the next go around, when I really need you to speak up. Maybe I didn't really need you to say something this time. Maybe you didn't have any, but just so we have that space.
Yeah, absolutely. I want you to know that I want to hear what you have to say. So at some point in time, hopefully you will share.
Well, that's culture building, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I think, you touched on it where, and I thought the same thing, and I'm willing to bet the other women on the panel did at some point, I got to know everything.
Yeah.
You don't have to know everything. You have to know where to get the information, but you don't have to know everything. And there's this misconception that as you go up, your knowledge base just gets wider and wider and wider, and you know everything. When it's actually the opposite. You know a little bit about everything,
a wider surface
but
area.
you have to know where to go to get it. And I have a very heavy forensics background, but I'm still not going to make decisions about forensics without going to the forensics kernel, because I speak fluent forensics, but I don't speak fluent Division of Justice Services. So I have to go to that person, but I know enough to know where do I need to go. I have a general idea, and I'm not afraid to say, I do not understand what you're talking about. I just held a meeting earlier this week when I was like, okay, raise your hand if you're still confused. Like, I need you to really take this down for me because I don't understand. And I'm not afraid to say that. And that does encourage other people to be like, yeah, I don't know what that is either. I was Googling that under the table. What does that stand for? Because there are so many acronyms. So recognizing I am not an expert in everything. You actually just know a little bit more about a lot of stuff, and like, that's my guy. That's my person for that, or that's my woman. I'm going to her. I need the answers. That's who I go to.
So do the work, get out your own head, and that, I think everybody can agree there, and recognize the rest area. I think you hit the nail on the head, particularly coming from CMS. When you start to rattle off all the things you do, it gets a little overwhelming and daunting, and I'm over like, how many commas, right? Of course, I do not know everything. I don't know probably 1/10 about all the different things we're responsible for. But my surface area has expanded because I got to know enough to be able to kind of understand what everybody's job is, but also manage up differently and be the lever to understand what information does the Gov office, what can they absorb right now and be actionable on. Because they don't need to know what I know, and I don't necessarily need to know what the folks over here knows, but playing that balance it's a never-ending road. Just know, for those of us who have to report up to you, it ain't easy, okay? It ain't, there's a lot of, but it's what you figure out. You figure out what part of the surface area do you want to share, do you have to share, but also that you're comfortable with. And I'm very quick to say, I'm sorry, I don't say that again, I'm not sure. But it also requires to be a good student, right? Like, you still have to be good students, and you have to figure out, you've got to know, you'll know when you know what you need to know. But I think that's a good segue into my next question. That's something that all of us deal with. We deal with imperfect information all the time, because we get the information as it were the moment the person put it together, and maybe things have already changed by the time it gets to you. So how do you navigate this and have the courage to make decisions in this kind of world?
I was just gonna, when we were having that discussion about, as you grow in leadership roles, you don't necessarily know more, but I think one of the skills that you do really have to hone is your decision-making skill, and be able to make decisions based on the information that you have. And like you said, it's sometimes imperfect information. And I think for me, it's surrounding yourself with people who you trust to give you the best information to their knowledge. And then from there, I think it's also giving yourself and others grace with those imperfections, and understanding that, the work that we do, and so much of the work that my panelists and you do, it changes so quickly in the day and age that we're in. So I think giving yourself and giving others grace with those imperfections, and also owning your mistakes, and using that experience for future decision making. So I think, and this is not just in the big decisions, but also the little decisions or the little things that that go wrong in some sense. Recognizing that mistake, owning your mistake, taking responsibility for that mistake is a huge part of leadership, and I think across the board is something that everybody benefits from. Being able to take accountability is what I look for in, you know, my fellow leaders and people that I want to work with or hire. Accountability is a huge piece of this, and understanding that grace, that not everything's going to be perfect. Give me the best information to your knowledge to help me make the best decision that I can. And if it's wrong or wrong in some sense, taking accountability, owning that mistake, and helping that inform your next tough decision that you have to make.
Yeah. I would 100% agree with everything that you said, which is, you know, Grace, a little bit of a relentlessness on asking the questions around what you don't understand. And,
Yes.
and at some point, you know when you need to make a decision. If you make a mistake, owning it. I apologize at least once a week to somebody for something.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yes.
for either the relentlessness or that was not the right call. And then making sure the follow through on, like, how do I make sure that something that wasn't clear or something that I know we're going to need again in a particular way, that this question gets asked more precisely, more clearly moving forward, so that way the next time this is like not a mistake that we keep repeating.
Yes.
There's a line, I'm not going to remember who's, like, if life keeps asking you the same questions, you're not learning the lesson. That is not me. That is a line of lyrics somewhere. But that's it. Like, you know, if I keep making that same mistake, that's a problem. If I'm like, we didn't get great information, I know there's a way to get this information. I know who I need to talk to or how I need to adjust this particular feedback mechanism. I can ensure that we're going to do better next time.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree. I think one thing that I tell staff when they meet me is that I will ask you a lot of questions, right? But I'm doing that to learn. I'm doing that to understand. I'm doing that to ensure I have all of the information that I need. So I very much, I am not putting people on the witness stand, right? But I am very much asking a million questions to ensure that I have the full picture to the extent that I can have it in that moment to be able to make a decision. And you make it with the best information that you have. And absolutely, you know, you have to be humble enough and vulnerable enough to say, okay, maybe that could have been done better,
Yes.
right? Maybe this, and when you acknowledge that, hey, now let's start asking some more questions now that I know something else, right, that maybe I didn't know then, and how can we ensure, now moving into a solution-driven focus, how can we ensure that we get us to a solution that that is best for everybody with all of the information that we have before us. So yeah, I definitely am very much asking you questions until I can't think of any other question to ask you.
And I think it's important to not let a failure go to waste. Not look at it as we really screwed that up. And it's like, well, yeah, you did, but how do you stop it from happening again? And I'll tell you, from a law enforcement standpoint, the first thing I say to myself is, like, how much time do I have to make this decision? Is this figuratively on fire or literally? Because it is, you don't always have days or weeks. It might be literally you have seconds to make a decision about making this happen. And I kind of go through, I'm a forensics person, it's a methodology, like, how much time do I have to make this decision? What are the risks? What are the potential outcomes? What can I legally do? What can I ethically do? What have we done historically? What additional resources do I need to help me make this decision? And so I kind of go through those things, and you after action everything, the good stuff and the bad. Because is there always something better? And if it's something good, hey, there was a great outcome. Well, can we train on that? And can we teach other people with that? So not just, hey, good job, you know, great work, but, like, what did you do? How did you make that decision? How did you get there? How can we replicate that? And the same, if something goes horribly wrong, you're not sweeping it under a rug. It's the accountability aspect. You own it. And you have to let your people see that, like, yeah, we made a mistake, and we're not afraid to let you know that we made it, but we're going to fix it. And it's not just a, we're not looking for a person to blame it on. It's not a name, blame, retrain, and then you wonder down the road how that happened again.
Yeah.
Is this a process problem?
Right.
Is this a policy problem? Like, what happened here? And really looking at what you do to truly make things better moving forward, so it's not a, just, hey, we're doing the same thing over and over, and you're recognizing those mistakes, and you're surprised every time that the same thing happens.
Absolutely.
No losses, only lessons.
Only lessons.
Yes.
Only lessons.
So we got to give people grace. Accountability does help. I can honestly tell you, particularly sitting at CMS, sometimes I just got to say, yep, you're right. It is messed up. And here's what we're doing to get better. I have to say it to you all, both officially in my role, but also personally when I'm saying, look, I know Director Hughes will, when I get that little text message at about 7:35, I'm like, oh boy, I gotta say I'm sorry about something, but here's what I'm doing. And also to the legislature. Yeah, some things we can improve, but here's what we're doing. But getting the right talent that will help us make better decisions in the future. I do want to open it up for our guests. I have so many more questions that I want to ask, so I gotta choose which one before I open it up. Okay, I'm gonna do two. We're gonna be real quick, so we can have a little bit of time. If you could, no, I'll do. What is your superpower?
Oh, I love this one.
What is your superpower?
I love this one.
Go ahead.
There you go.
So I think of two things. I thought of two things immediately. I know I'm supposed to pick one, but I'll be quick. I literally said this to someone last week. I am an optimist through and through, and it is my greatest strength, but also one of my greatest weaknesses, because I have to manage my own optimism, just a dash of reality. And sometimes I'm so optimistic and I'm so enthusiastic that something's going to work. I can put blinders on to not see, the realities so I always have to keep that in mind when I'm like, oh yeah, it's going to be great. Take a step back. Okay, let's think through how we can really make this great and really make this work. So I say optimism is my greatest strength and one of my greatest weaknesses. But I think in leadership, my superpower is empathy. I strive every single day to be an empathetic and compassionate leader, because I think that is what everyone deserves. I think it helps people show up as their best selves, which means they're also then their most comfortable self, and they are able to not just produce work, but produce life-changing work, because all of the work that we do is truly life-changing. So I think empathy is my superpower, and optimism is one of my greatest strengths, but can also be one of my greatest weaknesses.
Absolutely. All right, I will go. I would say my superpower is being solution-driven. You can find problems in absolutely everything, right? There are a number of challenges within the Illinois Department of Corrections. But if you are not focused on solutions, then you're not in the right place, right? And so that is truly my superpower. Wherever I'm looking at a challenge, I am looking for what is the solution that we can move through to get to where we need to be. And so that's right. That's the process, and all of those solutions can't happen at one time, and so sometimes that is very frustrating. But it is always looking for a solution, and I think that's kind of what drives me.
So I would say for me, it's dealing with people and communicating. Like, I can talk to anyone, and I will. It drives my friends crazy. Like, can you stop talking to the wait? It's like, no, I want to hear what she has to say. But there's a value in making people feel valued. And it's empowering to people when, like, I want to listen to you. I want to communicate. I'm going to ask questions. I want to understand what you're thinking and where you're coming from and the work that you do. And I genuinely care about that person, and you can communicate to them. And the work that we do, I believe in our mission, and I think we make a difference in people's lives every single day, people in our agency and the citizens. And when you can communicate that to people who work for you, they want to be in that space because they care too. Yes. Like, they want to do the right thing. So I would say dealing with people and communicating it's been really helpful, and it creates a culture of really collaboration and empowerment.
I'm going to do two, but I'm going to be really quick too. On my way in, I was thinking about this panel, and I was thinking about, how do we get GOAT status in state government? Like, what does that mean to, be the Beyonce of state government, or the Taylor Swift of state government, or the greatest of all time of state government? And it's so much more complicated than I think probably entertainment or basketball or any of it. Is so much more complicated. And but it's the drive to do that plus the values of public service, people, advancing racial, regional equity. Those combination of things for me, I feel like are my superpower as I try to navigate the system.
So intersectionality.
Yeah, there we go. Love that.
I love that GOAT status. Look, I okay. I found out the state of Indiana did something before us, and I have not let it go. It's coming this summer. Seriously, I was like, are you serious? No hate to Indiana. If you want to come work in Illinois, you do have to pay double taxes, but you'll deal with that. But GOAT status, I love that. I think that I can't even say anything else. I'm just going to let that one ride. So my last question before we open it up, if you could share one piece of advice to a state employee, and this originally was written as just starting that career, but I'm going to drop that. If you could just give one piece of advice to a state employee, what would it be?
One piece. There are so many opportunities. Try it. Go for it. Right? I think that would be my one piece of advice. I think we put so many obstacles before ourselves, in front of ourselves. Try it. Go for it. If you're interested in it, go for it. Try it. That'd be my piece of advice.
I love that. Mine is seek out mentors inside and outside of your field and approach them with specific asks. Think about why they are a mentor, why you would like them to be a mentor, or why you are interested in the work that they do, or the life that they live. It doesn't even have to be solely work related, but seek out mentors. And there are so many great mentors to be had right here within the state of Illinois.
I would say that, to piggyback on what you said, don't limit yourself. And we're fighting, law enforcement recruitment and retention is down throughout the entire United States. And I think with women, what we're fighting, there's a cultural perception that this is a job that's just better for men. And there's so many opportunities. That's not the case. So someone else has imposed that on you, or you've imposed it on yourself. I mean, I'm sitting here to tell you that is not true. And don't force that upon yourself. Don't let somebody else tell you, whether it's law enforcement or CMS, wherever you're going. Don't let somebody put you in a box. There's so many opportunities. And you talked about, the job. We have forensic scientists, pilots, investigators, troopers, whatever you want. There's so many opportunities in the state police. But there's a space for you. Yeah. There's a space for you regardless of which agency you go to. And sometimes you make your own space smaller. And don't do that. Do not do that.
I think what I'll say is, I think know yourself. So the question I ask when we're doing interviews is what are the things that in the everyday bring you joy? And what are those things that you're I have to really be brave. I really have to talk myself into doing that thing. Because I think when you know that, you don't get a job where you get to do everything you like all the time, but you give yourself the tools to say, here's what I know I'm going to dive into, and I'm really going to do that and do it well. And here's what I know I need to do to be ready to deal with everything else. And that's what I would say. Just spend time as you do your work. Just know yourself, know what you like, because that'll take you far.
I'm going to answer this one because it's a little bit expanding on what most of you have said. I establish a diverse personal board so that I have my work board. A lot of them are my staff members. Certainly my colleagues who take my calls as well. I have my outside of that. But you have to have a diverse personal board. Who can you call to play things off of? Just this morning, I kid you not, a good friend of mine, we're about the same age, literally maybe 6 months apart. We're contemporaries, but I consider her a mentor in some ways because while we are very aligned about lots of things, her mind just clicks just a little bit differently. So every now and again, she'll say something, and because I have a great deal of respect for her, I listen in a way and receive it that maybe I wouldn't receive it from someone else. And so when we think about mentors, it doesn't necessarily have to be this person who's older, who's done all these things.
Yes.
Yes, and there's a level of humility to say, you're my age, sis, but I look up to you because your mind makes my mind go in a whole nother direction. And so you spark something in me that helps me do something better than I could have done it. And everybody that should not look like you, because you don't want to be in an echo chamber. I mean that in every way possible. I don't care if it is the EA, the janitor, or the governor, right? Everybody in between, because they have a different value to add to what it is you're trying to do. And with that, you can move yourself in a way that is most beneficial to your goals, but also certainly if you're a state employee, to the benefit of your agency. Also, we have jobs at CMS. Feel free.
We also have jobs at DCO, I have to say, my COO.
Y'all got a 32%. Okay. Well, okay, I can't. Okay. We are doing better for y'all at the end of the table. All right. Okay. So with that, we'll open it up. I don't know if there are any questions in the chat, or we have something live here.
You can try to see if this works.
Please say your name, and if you are part of an agency, that would be helpful as well.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
All right. Hi, I'm Rose Sammons, a recent graduate from Illinois State University with political science and political communications. I wanted to know, what guidance would you offer to women of color who hold aspirations of pursuing a career in public service or politics? This is open to the board.
Oh, wow.
I think Cameron's just ready to.
Yeah.
I love that question. And I was going to say go Redbirds, but I'm from downstate. I'm a downstater. So when I was thinking through some of these questions, one of the questions that we talked about was, what do you wish you would have known when you were younger? I have a background in obviously public service and government and this work, but also the political side as well. And I really gave this a lot of thought. And for me, it is, everybody's faking it just a little bit. And I think, to your point, don't limit yourself. And for me, for a long time, I let imposter syndrome get the best of me and get the better of me. And I will share, even sitting at this panel, looking at the resumes of these amazing, seriously, we're talking about a woman who's literally making history right now, right? So I think it's important to acknowledge that imposter syndrome, but not let it limit you. To always say, okay, I feel that, I check that, but I can still be great. I will still be great, regardless of this little voice in my head. And I think as you grow in your career and you get more confident, the voice gets smaller and smaller and smaller. But it's really tough when you're starting out. And I got my start in downstate politics. And a lot of the rooms that I walked into, I was the only woman, and 9 times out of 10, I was the only woman of color. And that could seed a lot of insecurity for me, but instead I see it as a strength. I'm walking into this room and I'm bringing a different perspective, one that is equally as important as anybody else in this room, and carrying yourself with confidence and really showing up as your full self, not letting anybody shrink you, as we discussed earlier, is so important. So imposter syndrome is real. Acknowledge it, move past it. Don't let it limit you. And to the point earlier too, I've been so lucky to have people in my life that I consider mentors, that I can pick up the phone and call, ask questions and bounce ideas off of them. And I think it's really important to find those mentors, or as the director said, your board, your personal board of people who you can call. I know, this person's an expert on managing people and I really respect the way she does it, so I'm going to call her. Or this person has great sense of what I should do next, so I'm going to call him. So those are the things that I would say. That was a long-winded answer for our last 10 minutes. I'm sorry. But that was a great question.
It was. And I just want to piggyback real quick. So I also have a degree in political science, but I would piggyback off of what was just stated. Don't let fear stop you. Mm-hmm. Right? That would be my advice. Little personal share. I have a tattoo on my wrist, and it says fearless. Right? And And so I had it placed on at a time in my life where I lost somebody who really taught me that you cannot let fear stop you, right? There will always be something that will make you afraid, or you're afraid to kind of move forward. But you have to continue. You have to push back past that. So that would be like my best advice, right? When they say the greatest things in life are on the other side of fear, that's where you get to the greatness of whatever it is. You have to push past that. So that would be my advice.
Hold on, tactically do what you're doing here. You should get some cards, make some connections. You know, sorry, that's the CMS in me. Okay,
You're on the right track. You're on the right track.
Quickly, oh, I'm sorry, was another in the room?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, I was just, my name is Donna Kim, and I'm a Deputy General Counsel with the Human Rights Commission. And, it's not working, right?
It looks cool.
Okay. And so my question is that you were talking about a lot of traits that I think are particularly maybe important to women, such as showing humility or using humor or acknowledging mistakes. And those attributes are not necessarily, traditionally speaking, very professional. And so my question is, do you think that the professional landscape is changing, where those attributes are not seen as weaknesses, but are strengths?
Yeah, I would say I do, right? I think, again, in the work that I do, it's important to acknowledge that the work is difficult, and that, people are struggling within their own lives. And so if you don't acknowledge that, you can't get to the work. And so it's really important for me in the way that I show up to acknowledge that. The human factor in the work that I do is the most important thing. And so I think it has shifted to that you really have to look at and think about the people in the work that you do, because that's what really moves it and drives it.
You said Bonnie is your name? Bonnie, I do think the landscape is changing, and I'm telling you right now that I'm going to do everything in my power to keep pushing it in that direction, truly. Because in my opinion, our views of professionalism can a lot of times be antiquated. And our views of professionalism when we were in the professional landscape was a male-dominated setting. And that's not the case anymore. And it will continue to not be the case for the future. And I think that the attributes that you mentioned are things that, if they're authentic to you and you are showing up as your authentic self in the work that you do, then you're going to show up as your best self in that professional setting. And I will continue to push boundaries of what professionalism means when that professionalism is tied to when it was only men in professional work settings.
I agree. I would say the same thing, like whether it's humor or vulnerability. I will also, as I think everybody here, am not afraid to literally tell somebody what to do when that's what the situation calls for and make a decision. You just have to be able to do that. And I think it's always a balance. I'm here to push the boundaries on like how silly and much joy can I bring in while also doing the work, and show that it doesn't have to mean that I yell or scream or do any of these things that we know don't actually bring out the best in the people that we're working with. I feel relentless about that. And I also feel relentless about talking about the patriarchy, right? When some of us have the same questions, right? When we know, like, especially as a mom of a 4-year-old, like how much mental load we carry, right? Like, my husband is wonderful. He is still a man. He is, I hopefully he's not watching, but like how much we carry, right? Like that translates into the work. Like how much I'm being asked to do, not for my job, and who in my colleagues have to also balance that. I just have to name that sometimes. Like, it's important to name that and reconcile. Some of us are carrying less in the day, and like that's just what it means to be professional and show up and talk about my boundaries and get the work done. So all of those things, work in progress.
And I will just say that has not come easy. Like, that was not today that I started my job or my career and I showed up that way. But the beginning of my career, I really tried to fit into that box. I really thought, especially the first roles that I had as a manager, I thought, oh, I have to be like hard and I have to lay down the law and be intimidating. And I realized, to your point, that's not an effective way to lead. It's also not authentic to me. That's not who I am, right? And showing up as my authentic self means being kind and like super bubbly and smiley and approachable. And when I was young, I thought that was a detriment to my career. And now I realize it's an asset to my career. It's the way that I can walk into a room and introduce myself to people and those sorts of things. So I also want to acknowledge that, it's not something that you have, it's something I had to work on.
I do think the value of those traits, there's the value is increased of those traits. That being said, you always have an underlying strength. I think that, I don't know how to say it other than to say that emanates from you. I'm not, to be empathetic and to be a good listener and to care about your people doesn't mean we're sitting in a meeting crying and this is a new way. Like, no, but I'm listening to you, I'm understanding, and I can make a decision. So there's an underlying strength, and I will say, you're your true self, but you have to be able to flip and address someone. And I mean, I'll be honest, I've gotten the question a lot of, do you have a problem with male subordinates? I get that question a lot, and I'm always a little snarky, and I just respond, not for long. Because you can't, like, you don't have to try to be the stern trooper from 20 years ago. I'm me. Yeah. But when I need to change, I can absolutely do that, and then you'll understand what our roles are. But at the end of the day, I care about our agency and I care about our mission. And when people see that, it's a culture that it opens up, and you start to see people who were kind of standoffish and quiet, and you start to see aspects of their personality where people are like, oh, I didn't know that he could laugh. And it's like, yeah, he can laugh and he can talk, and it changes the environment that you're in.
Yeah. You're probably getting the response. That was a triggering question. I don't know if you watch the meta responses, it triggered me, and I'm glad you asked it. So I think a couple things that question actually ties back into one of our first questions, how women have shaped the workplace. Because what you see here is a direct outgrowth of that. But also, we do at CMS a lot of research on managing a multi-generational workforce. We have to. 40% of our employees, either today or 5 years from today, will be retirement eligible. And so what that really means is we have lots of jobs, or will in the next 5 years. But it's generational. The younger generation that's coming in, by the way, millennials are 40, just in case you didn't know that. But beyond millennials, the younger generation will not stand for anything less. And so they see where the door has been opened to be, and they're like, I want flexibility. I want to, matter of fact, I don't care what your DEI policy is. Tell me how it's implemented. Show me. There's a staffer that we have that's amazing mind. And she said, before I would even consider somewhere, I want to know your mission, your vision, and I'm looking at who's on your staff. And I said, oh my gosh, you did all the mission and the vision. So I was like, oh, we got to get this together, because if I can get another you, then with just the mission and the vision, like, oh no, but what does your staff look like? Because are you living whatever your mission and your vision is? I am one. I'm like, this is like 98% me. And I do it very purposefully. I'm gonna say a couple weeks ago, I was confirmed as director of CMS, and Mikasa, who I talk to all the time. But I brought my mom and dad, because I'm not here without them. Maybe they're watching. I don't know. They have my son right now, so thank you if you're not. But Mikasa sent me, and that was me. I told them that who I am. It was a little bit off-putting because they didn't know what to do, but I had to give homage to my ancestors. My parents are from Natchez, Mississippi, and Roberta, Georgia. I'm the face of what the Great Migration may look like. And Mikasa sent me an email after. She has my personal cell phone. She can call. She said, as a mother and as a woman, I am overwhelmed that you did what you did today, because you are really you. And you went in front of all these people to actually just stand there square and bring all that you are. It creates space for me to do that. And I had tears in my eyes reading it because I said all I was doing was being me. And sometimes, all the time, that's enough. Sorry, Mikasa, but that was just to me.
But this session has been powerful. The feedback in the chats, everyone is saying they want to see more empowering sessions like this again. Keep it going, CMS. You guys have already answered most of the questions that was here. So I will leave with a note from our assistant director to wrap it. Andre Williams, he said, I just wanted to say I thoroughly enjoyed this discussion. You all are truly inspiring, and I look forward to crossing paths and or seeing the amazing things you will do. As the Assistant Director of CMS, I am so fortunate to work with an amazing woman on a daily basis. Great job, ladies. And
Thank you.
yes, this has been amazing.
Well, certainly thank you for your time, for your nuggets. I think we all got great notes. And I hope that you all leave inspired. I hope that you heard your call to action. I hope that you feel seen. And I guess we'll have to do it again. So you ready? Next year, ladies. All right, okay.
We had close to 70 participants online.
Oh, wow. Thank you all. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. Happy Women's History Month.